Hello, everybody. This is A7X Fan Ben here with God Mason, and this is episode 7 of the Pirates CSG Podcast. Today, we're going to go over a variety of topics, an old thread from the forum at Miniature Trading, and a bunch of different custom reviews and a few other miscellaneous topics, and we'll probably get off topic in the meantime as well. So we're going to lead off. Wait, what did you say?
We're going to get off topic a lot, as we do.
Yeah, pretty much. So the first thing we're going to go over is an old thread from Miniature Trading, because a lot of people said that they wanted to see like back in the day type talk and Origins talk, stuff like that. So we already told our kind of stories and podcasts, the first episode. So we're going to start going over hopefully one per episode, but not necessarily. But we're going to sometimes go over some old threads from Miniature Trading. And the first one we've picked out is called Hypothetical Banned Items List. So this is a thread that was started by Wolf, the rules arbitrator, back in 2010, it looks like. And it's a really cool thread. I had it unlocked a few times. And I would say it's one of the cooler threads. It's really intriguing to look at, especially from a player's standpoint, because the thread really gets in depth about what could be banned or what should be banned, or if there ever should have been a ban list and things like that. So, but God Mason, you can give your thoughts on it first if you want. If you think there should have been a ban list, and if so, what should have been on it, if anything.
Thank you. I think I'll start off by saying the most obvious ship to include on there is Banshee's Cry.
Yeah.
By now, I'm guessing most people already know exactly why. If not, just go look it up and look at its stats. You'll know why. Yes, I think there probably should have been a competitive ban list, but based on the fact that this game wasn't as popular as, say, Magic the Gathering, and competitive play never reached that level of popularity, I think it might have been hard to disseminate the information, but a ban list may have been of value, although we don't really have any people on the forum that I'm aware of that have any sort of competitive experience from when the game was in print.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also don't really have competitive play experience from when, the organized play was still going on. I've done a few tournaments on Vassal with Xerix, which have been great. But for me, as I said in that thread, I think events are the main thing that should be banned. They're way too powerful for point cost. A couple of them, like Mermaids, Hidden Cove, and Favor of the Gods, those are all really overpowered. Mermaids, as I've talked about on the forum already, it's my least favorite game piece in the game by far, and I refuse to play with that or Favor of the Gods. There's a few, like Divers and Raft and False Treasure are all like kind of reasonable, but I don't really think events should have been in the game at all. They seem like weird, like supernatural like happenings. Like all of a sudden you can create this event that happens. But like Divers and Raft, those are the more practical or historical ones, but those could easily be equipment, especially Raft. And Divers could be like a crew or something, like an oarsman. And then the other events, like all of a sudden, like Becalmed and Foul Winds, you can summon nature like a god and like throw your opponent's ships around and stuff like that. It's just really, it's pretty strange. And that's why I think events should be banned. I'm not totally in favor of a ban list. It's interesting to think about because the game was not originally created as what it became, because when it first came out with Spanish Main, it was more of a casual game. The rules weren't as fleshed out. They quickly had to start making like the FAQ and stuff like that, which turned into like the giant pirate code document that's like over 60 pages now. So it was more of like a beer and pretzels game at first. So the thing about like a ban list at first was probably kind of bizarre, but as the sets went on, they released more and more stuff that could be banned. But yeah, like I said, other than events, I'm not hugely in favor of banning anything else. But yeah, if there was stuff banned, stuff like Banshee's Cry, and maybe the San Cristobal and a couple other things could be banned, but like Captain Jack Sparrow, pretty much the best ability in the game, that would probably be the best candidate if tournament play like resumed. But like I said, events are the main thing I would want to see banned more than anything else by far.
Yeah, events are they are kind of game breaking. I mean, I think even WizKids to a degree realized that because they didn't bring them back in any form later.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they even began to scratch the limit of what was possible with them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's probably possible to make them at least reasonably fair if you upped the point cost of the existing ones and maybe introduce some that had smaller effects from, or introduce some that had, less powerful effects for those existing point costs of a 1, 2, or 3. But
Yeah.
I think they sort of gave up on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And a few of them, like Duel, kind of makes sense too historically, and point cost isn't too ridiculous, but it's just kind of a weird concept that they messed with, and ironically, it messed up the game pretty bad. And so yeah, anything else you want to see banned other than like Banshee's Cry? I mean, there's not much else I would say, but
Darkhawk 2, Longshanks.
really,
There's not a lot else. Lord Micron, we can probably agree on.
Okay, yeah, he is pretty overpowered. Yep.
Well, maybe. See, I'm not like maybe he doesn't deserve a ban.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think he should maybe cost more points.
Yeah, I think like 10 points would have been better. Yeah, like
or at least something to put him in line with some of the similar abilities that, say, the Pirates and the Cursed have, like like All Powerful. I think it is the one where
exactly.
yeah, something sort of similar to that, but maybe crew like Micron should have had a ransom on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that too. That would have helped at least a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're jumping into balance discussion.
Yeah, neither of us are in favor of like a ton of stuff being banned, but there's definitely some pretty good candidates out there. So next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna look at the custom ships organized version thread, and we're going to go through, or at least we're gonna try to go through one custom from each post. So the reason we want to do this is to kind of diversify things, and we've done custom reviews in the past, but we haven't done like a lot from a bunch of different people. So instead of doing like a bunch of customs from the same user, we're going to do like one from each post in custom ships organized version. So this is on the forum at Miniature Trading. I always keep it unlocked and bump it to the front page sometimes. So I started the thread once the custom ships thread was getting pretty convoluted. So I started the post. I actually didn't want to make a giant post with all my individual game pieces. I just wanted to put my like unique ideas out there. And one of the ones that I've been kicking around for a while is Pow Chasers. This is a neutral equipment. It costs 5 points, and so it's a pretty expensive equipment. So basically, I'm not going to say the whole ability. Basically, the ship gets 2 cannons that can only shoot from the foremost mast of the ship. They have 4L rank and range, and they also have extended range. So basically, they can only fire in a straight line directly for the ship's bow, and you can't use other pieces of equipment with it. And also, they cannot have their range or rank improved, which is important because without that, they become kind of overpowered. So I've tested this a few times, not a ton. I'd like to have it appear in my current campaign game, Command the Oceans, at some point. I don't know if it will for sure. And in my playtesting so far, it's a pretty good equipment. It's kind of powerful. But that 5 points is pretty expensive for the games most people play. So I don't know if you've seen this custom or you want to give your thoughts on it.
I did read it before you started talking about it, and I really like it, actually. I always felt that was sort of maybe an under... maybe it wasn't a trait of naval armament that was paid enough attention to, I think. Yeah. Because, I mean, there were some ships released that, say, would have... there's some 5-mast ships out there. Some of them are from, say, Spanish Main, where the front and rear guns are L range, but the middle guns are only S range. Yep. It seems like they paid a little bit of attention to it, but they never really gave it as much attention as it probably deserves. I really like this. It probably needs further play testing, and it does strike me as a bit powerful. Yeah. But I do like it as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. I think my original inspiration for it was probably Dead Man's Chest, the second Pirates movie. when the Flying
yeah.
Dutchman is chasing the Black Pearl, and then
Opens
they
up
get
with the Gatling gun cannons.
they get like the triple guns come out and start
They
firing.
rotate.
I love that scene. It's like one of the few times in that movie they actually get the cannons out.
Yeah, it's absolutely silly, but I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's really funny. So that was probably my original inspiration. Then, just reading about naval history in general too, of course. So then, if you want to start, Bendari's first custom for next post.
Bendari. Yeah, let me poke through a couple of these. Okay, I'm just going to pick a random one. Rusty Hook, the pirate ship. Instead of just reading through the stats, it looks for the most part a sort of average ship, except for its ability, which is pretty interesting. You cannot initiate a boarding party against the ship. Yeah. Aside from that, it's an average, if not slightly above average, four-master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
it's both powerful, but also kind of a niche ability because you'd need to have a really good reason not to initiate a boarding party against that ship.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good ship. I like the cannons. They're kind of unique a little bit with that 3L at the front. The ability is interesting. Yeah, exactly. The ability is interesting, slightly similar to Turtle Ship in a way, when the panels are still there. But other than that, pretty average other than the ability. But I do like it in general. I think the point cost is fine, or maybe even come down like 1 point. Probably not, but I think it's pretty cool overall.
Well, I actually agree with you because I don't think it's too special. It's an interesting ability that might be something that a player could exploit if they found some really great combinations. But yeah. If that's all you have to say about that, do you have one of Selvaxri's pieces you'd like to choose?
Yeah. Going to the next post. Selvaxri has done a lot of different customs.
A lot of custom kits too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna go with one that I actually used in a game. It's called the Freud Vengeance. It's a French icebreaker. The cannons are about average. They're a little strange, but they equal about rank 3 across the board for the most part, on average. 3 cargo, L movement, icebreaker, and then the ability is what makes it stand out like crazy, which is this ship may tow icebergs. So
I like that
ability. I
really like that.
Yeah, I actually used this one a while back. It was like fall 2015. It was like like 3, 4, or 5 fleet game, and it was a really fun thing to experiment with. And I actually used some styrofoam icebergs. You can just get styrofoam and just hack it up because it's already white, so it already looks nice, and you can just make shapes out of it to make like custom icebergs. And there was a big one, so the ship like started towing that thing around, so it's like this huge iceberg off the stern of this ship. So it's pretty funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think because of how wide the custom iceberg was, I want to say I was able to tow it into a ship or two. I don't remember who won the game or anything. I don't know if the French did well or not, but it was a fun mechanic to play around with, and it's definitely something I'm almost slightly surprised WizKids didn't do with at least one of the icebreakers, but I think it's a really, really intriguing concept overall.
Yeah, I really like this ability. It reminds me of just how much I like a lot of the custom pieces I see people come up with, because I feel like people are willing to play with the rules and the mechanics and just kind of new abilities a lot more than WizKids ever was.
Yeah.
WizKids did come out with their fair share of interesting stuff, but a lot of the really cool abilities are kind of one-offs. This I really, really like. I don't see a point cost listed for it.
Yeah, he usually doesn't do point costs for his customs because he's not totally sure where they would be priced. So,
and would probably let people decide for themselves how much it's worth.
Yeah. I think I can't remember what I did for the game. I said like either 12 or 15, or I didn't really know what to do. So,
I was going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 11 to 13 myself.
Yeah, that could work too.
Yep. Yeah, because it's not super fast. So yeah. Okay, then let's see. We'll hop on to Xerax. Xerax and I both like the idea of implementing ironclads, but I don't think we can quite agree how is best to do it. And I know you don't like the Ironclad idea because you feel it's too modern.
Yeah, it's an Age of Sail game, so I'm just not really in favor of changing that because it makes it weird. So
yeah, I think that's fair. Let me see. I think I'll choose one of the simpler ones. I think some of these we may have done, maybe.
yeah, some of these are from his first set.
Then I think I'll skip past the cursed and probably the pirates in case we touch upon that later this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just skipped down to the Spanish, and I noticed a sort of familiar name, El Acorazado Nuevo. I'll let people find this in the thread.
Yeah.
Let's see. A couple really powerful defensive abilities. Maybe even better offensively. I'm not quite sure how to feel about this one. I feel like it's piling up too many good traits, and as a result, I have a problem with really high point cost ships. Basically, anything above 20 is kind of needs to be game breakingly good to be worth its point cost.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it kind of makes for unfavorable gameplay a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I like it, and that's probably not an unfair point cost, but I don't see it being used.
Yeah, I see it being used a lot in campaign games, but not in like standard games, which is part of the issue. Like in standard games, it would be, I don't know, it would be a decent gunship. The original would probably be better potentially, not necessarily though, because this one's faster. But in campaign games, it would definitely be a beast in that kind of game because you could afford it so much more easily. I do think I totally agree with what you said first though. I think it's just piling up too many good defensive abilities. In general, defensive abilities are usually better than offensive abilities in this game. There's only a few exceptions, like the Endeavor, like eliminate 2 masses with 1 hit, stuff like that, are the exceptions. But like L-range cannons can't hit the ship, and feats are required to eliminate one of the masts. That's just, it's kind of over the top, I guess. I think
I can see that being fair on an expensive smaller ship.
Yeah.
Provided it wasn't as well armed. Let's say if it's a ship that had, a trio of 3S guns, instead of what looks like all rank 2, I think.
Yeah.
But if that was like on a not so fast 3-master with average armament, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But as is, I think it's too many good abilities rolled into one, and
I agree with that pretty much. Going to the next post. Let me scroll way down here. There's a ton of customs there. The next one, El Cazador. He recently returned to the forum. I know a lot of his customs pretty well because I play tested a bunch of them, but that just makes it easier to talk about because I can actually give that kind of feedback where I've actually used them.
He's got a lot of Legend of Zelda sort of
he did
fanfiction ships.
Yeah, he did that sort of tie-in set. I'll go with the one I know best, the Tenfold. It's a mercenary hoist, 3 mass, 22 points, 5 cargo, SS move, average cannons, and then it has a boatload of abilities. Mercenary.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's a mercenary, and it's a hoist and it's a turbine.
Yeah. So it's like kind of a new game piece basically. So if you can imagine a hoist with like a turbine on it. From the turbines in the last couple sets, and then it also has, this will be easy because it has the same ability as the Acorazado Nuevo and the original, of course. 2 hits are required to eliminate one of the ship's masts, and then it also ignores the first hit she takes each turn if she has all of her masts, just like Joaquin Vega from Spanish Main, who is often put on the Acorazado, the original. So 3 hits to eliminate the first mast, and then 2 for the other ones. So 22 points, even more expensive than the Maui's Fishhook to make it the most expensive hoist in the game if it had been produced. This one is really interesting. I've play tested this one more than once actually, and he wrote a comment about how I had done so fall 2015. I tested a bunch of customs from different people, including my own, and it was a really great ship. The best part about it is probably that it gives the mercs a chance because with the hoist keyword, you can unload. You can use the hoist arm to unload at your home island with that. So you can kind of get away from the mercenary keyword, which doesn't allow you to dock at your home island. So it's like a great gold runner for them, and it's also really durable. It's just such an interesting ship with so many abilities and different like combos and things like that. And then when you get into some of the named crew combos and things like that, it can really become a powerful ship.
I mean, when I look at it, I see sort of a same case of this is so many abilities stacked up that regardless of how actually effective it is, I feel like it's really hard to get the point cost quite right on something like this.
Yeah.
I do agree that it is important that the mercenaries have some way to play the gold game, but I mean, you have play tested this, so you do know it better than I do. Mm-hmm. Looking at it from where I'm sitting, it does look OP.
Yeah,
just
it is
overpowered.
Pretty powerful. It's definitely a fun one to test out too, but there's just so much going on and so many combos and so many abilities that it's kind of overwhelming to look at. I remember the first time I saw it, it was like, it's crazy. And the turbine, I think maybe in terms of edits though, maybe you could drop turbine. I'm not a huge fan of that ability just because it came around later, like in terms of history anyway. And but also in terms of that though, I think there was actually a moment in the game, in one of the games I used it in, where it was derelict, or it would have been, but with a helmsman, it can move SSS with the turbine keyword, as if it had all our masts, and then with a full load of gold and then the hoist arm, you can still unload. It was kind of OP in like the late game because you can still move the full move with a bunch of gold aboard. So it's got kind of crazy at the end, but it was definitely a fun ship to try out. So.
Yeah, I think the next. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the next one is one from my post.
Yeah. Like
I'm not sure if you want to pick one. There are quite a few ironclads mixed in, but I'm guessing you'll probably recognize most of their names and be able to dodge them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Do you have any that you would want me to go over offhand, or should I just pick one?
Let me see if I can figure out one in particular, because I've got a lot of them that I like. That I like the idea of playing with. Yeah. But I mean, I like doing really weird abilities too. So
yeah, I see that. I see it says dwarf in the flask.
Yeah. I don't know if you know what that's a reference to, but
no, I don't. That's probably why I'm finding it amusing.
It's a Full Metal Alchemist reference. Basically, okay, cool. That crew I think is okay, but I think I figured out one or two that I want to talk about, but I know I can't. I've got to pick one. Would you rather talk about the drawer or the stolen kite?
Let's go stolen kite, because I want to say if I recognize the drawer. I think I might have already seen her.
I think you do. So stolen kite. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts after reading this?
Interesting. Really slow. Okay, so it's cursed, 6 points, 4 cargo, S move, 4 L cannon, 1 masted galley. You have to roll a 6 to hit it on a cannon roll, and it gets S plus S to its base move for every time it was shot at the previous turn. So that's pretty interesting. So the more you get shot at, the faster you go. I think I like it regardless of the two abilities. I like it just because with a helmsman, you'd have SS move, 3 cargo for 8 points, which is slow, but for the curse, that's really not that bad. And then you have a nice defensive ability. I would say
I like to think of it as maybe a smaller version of Buscador.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. I mean, it's so different from a hoist that I don't know if I can make that comparison, but...
defensive ability-wise, maybe.
Yeah, that second ability. The Pestilence is faster, has the same ability of having to get a 6 to eliminate a mast. I think this one, because of that ship, this one maybe could be more expensive because it has more cargo and then it has a nice positive ability in addition to the defensive one, and it's a galley. But at the same time, it is really slow, so it's tough to know. I think
Would it
ramming,
almost be okay if it was like moved up to say 7, but
yeah, I think
give an L move?
possibly, maybe, yeah. Or you could play test it as is and then go from there. One thing,
Yeah.
ramming is going to be a big deal because you could just ram it out of commission. But
Well,
other
the
than that,
the galley keyword would allow it to move, though.
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
In that case, I
that
would want to
was
put an oarsman aboard, like helmsman and oarsman, because then you could try to avoid capture for longer at like SS move. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting piece. Actually, it's pretty intriguing, and I would like to see it in play.
SS plus more if they missed you.
Yeah, if it was shot at. Yeah, I'm just thinking an enemy would probably just ram because they'd see that, and then it would be more likely to get away, so then they'd ram it, but then if you had an oarsman aboard, you'd have to ram it again just to take out the oarsman, and then a third time just to capture it. So it would be pretty annoying to deal with. So I think it's pretty interesting. I like it.
Yeah, I think you're right about the oarsman. Yeah, probably needs play testing. Is there anybody who posted after me? I don't think so. Yeah, we like doing the really interesting abilities.
Yeah, the customs are definitely fun. And now we're going to look at a couple more. We're going to go to Cthulhu's Mercenary rework for a short bit.
I really liked this one.
Yeah, this one was interesting. I didn't. My first post, I reacted because it was pretty crazy. A lot of stuff was really overpowered. But then he posted a ton of edits. He edited pretty much all of it, and I posted a comment in the forum already. It's on page 110 of the custom ships thread, and I pretty much said all I need to say. So you can see my comments there.
Yeah, I went over most of it too.
Yeah, there's still a few that I think are a little too good, like the slipstream. And then there are some comments after that, and Wolf even chimed in too, which is always good because he's pretty much the best on this sort of stuff because he was involved in game design and play testing back in the day. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where exactly the updated version was.
Yeah, it should be page 110 of custom ships.
Yep. I got your link there. Yeah. All right, I found it. Should we just kind of march through them in order, the updated version, or what do you think?
I think we could just pick out a few random ones because you already gave our comments on the forums. He already knows what we said about him pretty much.
All right.
Like a few that I had issue with, like the slipstream, even after the edit. This is one of the last ones he edited. Basically, you can mark an island explored from SOA, and then when the ship explores an island, roll a d6 on a 5 or 6. The submarine gains plus S base movement for every island she explores. So that one struck me as overpowered, especially with a lot of islands or in multiplayer. Because you could basically have a submerged submarine with like crazy movement, which becomes like a really powerful ramming device where you could like ram a ship from like across the ocean in one move action. But and he said he might change that one, but
yeah, I like it. Although because it's on a die roll, it is one of those things that won't work every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird middle grounds where the potential is so high, but because of RNG, you're not really sure. It's another case of an extreme thing that may be hard to balance. It probably needs some play testing to prove that it's not broken.
Yeah, I agree. And then he said later, plus S without a limit causes problems. And that kind of gets back to why I'm not a huge fan of cargo masters and navigators, because it becomes like unlimited. I think there should be a cap on some of these crazy abilities that let you do like this unlimited, like infinity type stuff where the slipstream could have like L movement plus like 10 S's. I mean, that would be a problem in like longer games and campaign games, but it still is an issue. So I think maybe like she can get plus S to her base move up to 2 S's or maybe 3 as the absolute max, because beyond that would be make her like the fastest ship ever, which would be weird. So
Yeah. I always thought that the Cargo Master, just the generic crew as is, probably, I think, should have the limit and the ransom keywords aboard because it is such a powerful crew that, like, why should you be allowed to have that plus a build limit booster?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of overpowered. Like I said, I play a ton of campaign games, so it strikes me as overpowered for those specifically. The limit and ransom would help with that one. Limit I don't find super difficult to work around. Usually, it helps a bit, but it's not always the best way to edit something that's already overpowered. But and like Cargo Master, if I had to edit that one, other than like eliminating it from the game, I would say maybe a cap of like up to three ships can get an extra cargo space or something like that.
Yeah, that one's not absurd. Last I knew, I thought I'd seen people building fleets that used multiple Cargo Masters.
Yep.
I was under the impression that that may actually be illegal because when I look at it, I think, well, normally, like, multiple of one crew can't use their ability aboard or on the same ship. So when I look at a fleet that uses, say, 2 American Cargo Masters, I think, well, that shouldn't add +2 to every ship because that's the same ability being applied twice.
Yeah, it's a weird case where it's like a different source. I don't know, it's kind of confusing. So it's like the ability can't stack on the same ship, but if you have the Cargo Masters on different ships, those ships get the Cargo Master ability, and then it would apply to your whole fleet. Because they're generic crew too, so you can have multiples of them, kind of like tribal chieftains. But it is definitely a weird one.
It's one I don't like, and I think I'm never going to. I mean, I only have like one American Cargo Master in my collection.
I only have like 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, even if I did get more or just used proxies as, 5 gold coins, because 5 points, I think I would probably house rule that. So, not so broken.
Yeah. Okay, so next we're going to go, unless you have more comments on the rework, which you can.
I don't have any more on Slipstream, but I did want to, one of the first ones listed, Terror. It's basically a sort of semi-average 3-mast gunship on the expensive side with a couple abilities that I like. Obviously, it's a submarine. It's got solid armament, but I really like the fact that it has the fog hopping ability.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool too. I know Cazador did a fog hopping submarine at one point. I think it's a cool ship. I think a lot of these pieces were okay not being edited, but this one I think works. I saw the Terrace flavor text recently, and it talks about like swirling mists and stuff. So this one does work in terms of like editing it to make it more based on the flavor text. But because before I had the fear keyword, which is kind of fun to use submerge, but it's not that good. So yeah, I think this one might be. I mean, based on other fog hoppers, it might be a little too good. Because I feel like a 3-masted fog hopper without the submarine keyword would cost about this many points with those pretty solid guns and that move. So I think maybe a few more points, like 15 or 16, would be a little more appropriate. But I don't think it's overpowered as is.
Yeah, I think considering what's out there for around that point cost, I don't think it's unfair because, you've got to compare it to ships like Grinder, Les Décharges, or even stuff like HMS London, which I think we can probably agree is a little extreme.
Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm comparing to other fog hoppers that are slightly cheaper but considerably worse overall and don't even have the submarine keyword built in as well. That's mostly what I was saying.
Yeah, I think the fog hopper keyword is so little used because I think it only appeared in Davy Jones' Curse and in Rise of the Fiends that I'm not sure that as a whole, even more knowledgeable players like you may even have a full grasp of how useful it is.
Yeah. It's decent, like bigger games, like a lot of things. I keep saying that, but I can't help it. It was fun. in Vassal Campaign Game 1, I was the Curse, and I used like I had a squadron of fog hoppers, basically, like all their fog hoppers, and a few customs too. It was pretty effective. It was fun as like a surprise attack, using them as like a sneak attack squadron. But the fog hoppers themselves weren't good enough gunships to really make a big dent in opposing fleets. And the other issue was that sometimes the fog hoppers will come out of a fog bank in like enemy territory, but even if they have captains, they can't always reach enemy ships. And then that loses the element of surprise, and sometimes it just kind of falls apart. And it was kind of a thing where it was reasonably effective for a while, but like each time the fog hopping squadron went on a mission, they would like lose like one or two of the ships. So it was kind of depleted gradually over time. So I think overall, the ability I think is about appropriately priced. It's not great in smaller games. I did try to use Walker one time in like a 60-point game, and it didn't really work very well. But to be fair, my opponent went first and like crippled most of my gunships on like the first turn, I think, or the second turn. So probably not a good example in smaller games.
Yeah, I mean, having looked at all the fog hopper ships and having assembled a fleet or two, one of which I've posted, I think that the majority of the ships that have the ability are really not very good. They're mostly overpriced. Yeah. It is a useful ability regardless of what a ship is good for, but the fact is that most ships that actually have the ability are severely lacking in at least one area.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I actually, my current campaign game, Command the Oceans, the Cursed have launched a similar fog hopping squadron, which has only been in action once, and it's probably gonna play out eventually. I don't want to give any spoilers on what they're planning, but it'll be interesting to see if that squadron is more effective than the similar one from Vassal Campaign Game 1. And the Command the Oceans thread will have the battle reports for that to see how that plays out. I forgot what I was going to say, something else, but any more comments on the rework?
Well, noticing that interestingly spelled Count Gustav instead of Gustav. I don't know if that's deliberate. But this ship may shoot ships inside fog banks. I think maybe if you rework it so if it's inside the fog bank, it can shoot the other ship.
Yeah.
Because that makes some more sense to me.
Yeah. I think that works. Wolf commented on that and said it's tough to kind of like excuse that ability because you can't like determine where a ship is in the fog bank, which is an interesting point. But yeah, I think what you said is interesting though. I do like that. I actually thought about that in Command the Ocean.
Or you can maybe modify it so it can, if it rolls a 6, it can do that.
Yeah, have some like ability, like or a 4 to 6 or 5 to 6, something like that. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense too, because like if you're shooting in the fog, it should be less accurate. Or maybe, were you saying like the cannon rolls had to be a 6? Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Yeah, that does make sense. Maybe we should we should say that in the thread actually. Yeah.
In case he doesn't listen to this, who knows? Yeah. Do you want to be the one to post that, or should I do that?
Either way.
All right. I'll or one of us can message him. I'll just message Cthulhu then.
Cool. And then I remembered what I was gonna say though. The fog hopping ability. One thing I'm interested in is the potential. We talked about how most of the fog hopping ships are kind of mediocre, so it's one of those few uses where copy or Davy Jones, where Davy Jones' curse could come into play, because then you could copy it and get it on like a 10 master and start like running all over the place with like the Gui Chuan or Delusion or whatever, and just like wreak havoc out of the fog and stuff. So,
or do that with or with, if you brought in, you could do it with Behemoth, or you could incorporate the Eye of Insanity and do that by proxy, put that ability on another ship.
Copy Davy Jones with a copier, and then Behemoth, that brought up a great point, because Behemoth is actually part of the fog hopping squadron in Command the Oceans right now, and the Behemoth joined them for the first fog hopping mission, which wasn't like a big success, but yeah, it kind of increased their numbers, and it's fun to copy wacky abilities like that. It's such a unique thing to be able to copy it with such game pieces having that ability.
Speaking of Behemoth, real quick, I do feel that Behemoth is a really cool piece, but I don't think it's all that good.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's quite good for a sea creature of any kind, because you can copy like defense abilities to really keep it alive, or captain, obviously. I like one of the most powerful things is like keep it submerged, and then on the turn. Oh, actually, I don't know if this would work, because you'd have to surface it. Actually, no, I think it would work, because you'd still have the sea monster keyword. So you would surface it, then copy captain, so you could do like a sneak attack. And if your opponent doesn't have any way to counter sea creatures, they're pretty much going to be at your mercy if you can get the range right, because you can just be immune until you're right there, and then pop up and copy the captain keyword on the same turn to get your shots in, and then maybe pin the enemy ship too. But yeah, for 19 points, it's very difficult to pull off a lot of great stuff with it in like a standard game, but in bigger games it becomes more fun to use and more kind of more diversified.
Because you've got a bigger pool of abilities to play with.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yep. You don't have to build the rest of the fleet around it, because I have built a 40-point fleet based around making Behemoth crazy powerful.
Yeah.
It's got like, I think it's got I think it's got a flotilla and one of those ships where you can't shoot it within S.
Yep.
So, I mean, kind of the idea is you make it really kind of both offensively and defensively powerful, but it still runs into the problem where it's kind of like a boss fight. It's always got a vulnerability no matter how you play it.
Yeah. And then one other thing I did in a fleet challenge, do you know Namazu from Return to Savage Shores? It's basically,
I don't know my Return to Savage Shores pieces very well.
It's basically like a sea monster with the Neptune's Trident unique treasure as the ability, where you can like eliminate 2 mass from every ship with like a wave attack that goes like 2L away and S wide from the sea monster. So I did a fleet challenge fleet where I basically had Namazu, and then Behemoth copied that ability, so I had like 2 sea creatures like using like tidal wave attacks at the same time. So it's crazy. And then they can stay submerged until they unleash the waves of devastation. It's wacky.
That really reminds me. Has anybody made sort of fan cards that one could print out of Savage Shores ships? Because I would like to sort of have the ability to use other ships as proxies for them and have the stat cards there.
Yeah.
Without having to like read them off of my computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's anybody out there who can like do a design of them that we could print.
Yep. Yeah. Some Cannon Fury, he created the Economy Edition rule set, and he's actually the one that started the custom ships thread. If you look in I don't know where it is exactly. It's in the first like 10 or 20 pages of the giant custom ships thread. Cannon Fury actually made a few game pieces from Return to Savage Shores. He made the Renard, a 2-masted French junk, and then he made the Zanfu as a mercenary 10-master, but he didn't have a spare 10-master, so he made like an American 6-master instead. And he did have cards mocked up, but it wasn't like a printable thing. But you might be interested in seeing that. So it was pretty cool, and as far as I know, it's the first and possibly only example of somebody using stuff from RTSS. So
yeah, I mean, I may just want to like get myself some note cards and kind of write them out, and it's not pretty, but it would kind of work.
Yeah, I have the spreadsheet I made like printed out, so that's usually what I reference. Other than like memorizing it just from seeing it a bunch of times, and yeah, I've seen it more now because I just posted the Return to Savage Shores rankings thread on Miniature Trading, which will be the last set. That'll be the last set rankings thread. As we go into the other topics for rankings, and then
I want to read through that because I don't know that set well.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a pretty cool set, similar to Savage Shores, but a lot more unique stuff, just like SS. I forgot what I was gonna say again, but anyway.
Why did WizKid split that set in half?
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah.
I think what was next was we were gonna look at the Pirates faction from Xerax's custom set.
Yep. Yeah. So now we're going back to Xerax's Return of Davy Jones custom set. We're looking at the Pirates now. They're the next faction on the spreadsheet. So I'll just jump right into it. You can find this at Board Game Geek, and he's posted a link to the spreadsheet on miniature trading. The first one is Misfortune's Keep. Has a 6-masted junk. Pretty basic, no other abilities. The cannons are, they're weird. They're basically like a galley, so it starts with a 2L at the front, and then the last cannon is a 6L, so it gets worse from bow to stern. Good move and good cargo, though. I would say this one is pretty much appropriately costed. I think it's a great potential hybrid. I would want to put maybe a World Hater, a Captain, and a Helmsman aboard, and then have, if you used one like Barbosa or Sandro Ramirez, you could have 3 cargo available with those, one of those crew, and then a helmsman, so you could have a decent hybrid there. So I think it's a nice junk, actually.
Yeah, I do like this one. It doesn't seem overtly powerful, but it does seem like a pretty solid multi-purpose ship. It might even be 1 point too expensive, because there are some really good options out there at pretty similar point costs that can do multi-purpose stuff. Yeah. As a whole, I like it. I'll read off his rework for the Harbinger next. It's 19 points, 5 mass, of course. Cargo, I don't think that's supposed to say A.
Oh, yeah. I see a 4. I don't know if it looks like
okay, a 4. Because it came out as A for me. Maybe some sort of weird glitch. Okay, 4 cargo.
It does like a different font, yeah.
Okay. Broadside's attack is not an amazing keyword. It's not terrible, but this might be too expensive for a ship that's kind of this old-fashioned, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's kind of boring. And also, my main comments would be, it does seem too expensive. I think 16 or 17 points would be okay. I mean, comparing it to like the Argonauta, I mean, you would think it's appropriately costed, but that ship should have been cheaper in the first place too, like we talked about in the CC set review. But my other little slight issue with this is that this would be the 3rd version of this ship after the first 2 versions, which is getting a little much. But it's also, in my opinion, considerably inferior to both of those. So I just don't think I feel like it's kind of an unnecessary addition when we already have 2 great versions, and it's hard to pick between those because they're classics and really great. So I would never really want to use this one over those 2.
Yeah, honestly, for 19 points, I have ships I like a lot more that I'd rather use.
Yeah, me too. The next one is the Terror. This one, 15 points, 4 mass, 3 cargo, L move, average cannons, blockade runner, keyword, which I'm pretty sure is +1 to boarding rolls and +1 to ram rolls. And then it also has reroll built in, the reroll ability. This one, it's okay. If you think about the blockade runner and keyword, it's just +1 to boards and ram rolls. I think it's appropriately costed. I think it's fine. I don't really think it's too exciting, but it's okay. I don't have much else to say.
I think it may actually be a little bit too expensive because, that is a pretty good host of abilities right there.
Yeah.
But it's on such an underwhelming platform and at not a competitive price. Because if you think about it, what's the formula for almost every boxed ship that came out? Say Davy Jones Curse and beyond. It's the special edition 4-mass ships. They're all 4-mass around 12 points. They've got kind of not amazing abilities. Yeah. They've all got almost exclusively 3 rank guns. This looks like one of those to me. It looks like it would have come out of one of those special edition boxes. it's just not special enough in any one way. I think the abilities are cool, but I don't think they're fitting for such an average ship.
Yeah, I think it's all right. One thing, plus I don't like ram damage. I've done away with it in my custom rules. I'm not using it in Command the Oceans, but +1 to ram rolls is pretty good ability as part of the blockade runner keyword. So I think the point cost might be a little too high, but not too much. It would be interesting to know what I think he said they would be similar to schooners in design, but I can't remember exactly. It'd be interesting to see how the masts are arranged with those L cannons at the front and back, in terms of like lines of fire and stuff like that, because that can make the ship a little better, or maybe even more mediocre, depending on how it's arranged. But
yeah, I mean, if I had to try to balance it for its cost, I would make it faster and give it better cargo, because for ships that look like they're meant to board but don't have much cargo, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yep. Viper is next. A 2-mast ship at 12 points is kind of expensive. It doesn't have much cargo. What's this? The battleship keyword. I've got to run back and look at this.
Yeah, it's basically extended range, and the ship gets she gets 2 shots per mast, just like Longship.
Yeah, I'm as a whole not a fan of putting extended range on ships.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like it kind of tramples on all of the gun range mechanics.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if it was S-range guns, and these are S-range guns, but I mean, I suppose this is probably not too outrageous, if I'm honest, because what little advantage it has over a 4-mast ship with, say, 4 rank 3L guns, it loses out in the fact that it's significantly less durable than that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I look at it that way, it's a 4-mast ship that's less durable, then it's probably more fair than I initially thought.
Yeah, I think it's okay. The other battleships, like the cursed ones and some of the ones from the other factions, the other battleships are generally underpriced. This one is priced pretty much appropriately, I think. But I think the battleship keyword is just too good. Like giving a ship 2 shots per mast and extended range is just pretty powerful for one keyword. But other than that, it's pretty average. I'll go to the next one, Dead Man's Revenge. 20 points for a 3-master, 2 cargo, LL move, pretty solid cannons, and then the ship burner keyword, which is pretty interesting. So basically, if you get within an S of an enemy ship, roll a d6 on a 4, 6, 4, 5, or 6, the ship explodes. So you remove her from the game, and every enemy ship with an S gets a crew eliminated, replace the mast with a fire mast, eliminate a cargo, basically. But if she rolls a 1 or 3, remove all of the ship's mast, eliminate all her crew. So she comes derelict, basically, with no crew. So this one is it's pretty wacky. I've seen this before. I've known about this for a little while. I tested one of them. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was the torpedo, maybe. But they're pretty wacky keywords, obviously. We'll see the port burner in a second. I think it's a little too much.
Too extreme.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like almost like the tenfold. Like, you don't know where to price it because like it's going to be terrible or amazing, like a game winner, and maybe even a game breaker if it's if it does well enough, or it could just totally fail. I will say that the prices are high enough to be fair. It's kind of out there, I guess.
Yeah, my experience basically I learned from having played many thousands of games of World of Tanks at this point that the crazier you try to make something, the more extreme the min-maxing or abilities or what have you, the harder it is to balance, and the more likely you are to end up with something that's game-breaking or frustrating.
Yeah.
And frankly, you kind of need middle ground to have sort of consistent games. So I'm not a fan of this ship because I just think it's too extreme. There's too much to remember about it when you're playing it.
Yeah. I think my other comment which applies to the other ships with these abilities too. It kind of reminds me of the fire ship idea, which is extremely historically accurate. Fire ships were a huge deal in the Age of Sail, especially early on, and I have my other custom in the organized version thread talks about fire ships because that's something I've wanted to playtest for a while, but I just never can fit it into games, and I definitely want to see it in Command the Oceans. I'll probably talk more about it on another episode, but for now, you can go to the next one, the torpedo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just reading the port burner keyword real quick. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's another case of an overcomplicated ability. It looks kind of interesting, but at 18 points for what looks to amount to something that's kind of a way to take, not like take gold from an enemy's home island, but just destroy it on the enemy's home island, it seems too expensive for what you're getting.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, and it all depends on a die roll. I feel like it's too extreme. It's actually more extreme than the other one, because if you get both die rolls to work, it's a game winner for 18 points. If you get like 2 6s in a row, you could eliminate all their coins and just win. Or it's just a total waste of 18 points. So it's
really fast too. So a lot of ships wouldn't be able to counter it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could get in there and get those die rolls, and then if you get maybe a reroller, and something like that aboard, or like maybe Micron in the background. I mean, there's ways to exploit it.
Yeah.
Again, it's so extreme that it's just tough to reconcile in terms of like actually playtesting it. It's just so wacky and out there. Look at the next one.
I think we can more or less sum up the next one, Broken Blade, the same way, because it's almost identical, but it's 2 points more and it's a schooner.
Yeah, basically the same ship almost. Then the next one after that, Inferno. This one has the ship burner keyword, just like Dead Man's Revenge. It's smaller, has one less mass and one less cargo, but the same point cost. Which I'm not sure why, so it should be cheaper. There's no real reason it should be that expensive. But same comments for me, just it's just, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to go about doing it, I guess.
Yeah. So would you like to jump on to Destiny's Bounty instead?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I can do that one. You could do some of the crew. This one, 13 points for a 3-masted junk, 3 cargo, LS move, average cannons. Secret hold keyword is the only thing that really makes it stand out. Other than that, pretty boring. I mean, the speed is good. I think 4 cargo would be perfect, even if you had to increase the point cost. Because it's not really... I like to have gold runners where the cargo space is higher than the number of masts you have, especially on a 3-master. Because as soon as you put a helmsman or an explorer on, you get into pretty low cargo territory. But running this ship empty would be pretty mediocre in terms of what the pirates can offer with other ships. So it's not a great ship for the secret hold keyword with only the same amount of cargo as she has masts, but it's certainly not a bad ship. It's just not one that many like hardcore pirates players will use when they have so many other better options.
Yeah. I mean, this strikes me as just not a very good ship, because Secret Hold is at its best on a ship with a rather large cargo space. Mm-hmm. Ideally, very full of gold, but one where you wouldn't really want to lose a boarding party and lose any of that. But this has very average cargo space. I don't think this is a ship I would ever use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd say 4 or 5 cargo spaces, even if you need to up the cost, make it more of an interesting choice.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe like Hammersmith as like a hybrid maybe, or maybe Gentleman Jacquard to give it an extra cargo space and then run it empty without any other crew, but not great options, but a few crew options. And then I'll start the crew. The first one is linked to the Misfortune's Keep, which is that 6-masted junk I talked about earlier. Navarre costs 10 points. Basically has the captain ability, and then also the capture for gold ability, so you can capture enemy crew, and then they're worth their point cost in gold when unloaded at your home island. So this one This one is tough to price. Bonnie Peel
Isn't there
was
Bonnie Peel? Yeah.
Yeah, Bonnie Peel is 8 points. That was probably
But
right.
did she even have the captain crew?
Yeah,
Or
she does
did
have
she?
that keyword.
She
Yeah,
does.
and then the other ones like Blackbeard, they had this ability for 7 points, just like Barstow, who has it for 7 plus Explorer. I want to say 8's the better cost. I think it is a pretty good ability. I'd say maybe 9 would work for 6 for the capture gold ability, 3 for captain, maybe 9 points would work. But either way, it's a good ability. One thing I will note about it from playtesting it, or not playtesting, but just using it in games a handful of times, it really depends on your opponent, because if they don't bring many named crew, you're not going to have a lot of potential gold to get. So sometimes you'll be forced to waste those points. And in that case, you might not want to play new players with this ability, because they're not going to be using as complicated combos, and they're probably not going to be playing as they're probably going to be playing smaller games. So against an experienced player, you might want to use a crew like this. Newer players might stick to generic crew more. And but overall, it's fine because it already exists, so there's not much else to say about the cost.
Yeah, I look at it and I think to myself, it should be 2 points cheaper to sort of be in line with other crew that came out before. I do think it's a good link for Misfortune's Keep, which we agreed on was a good ship that we both like. And the ability does pair well with the fact that it's a 6-masted junk that feasibly is an excellent boarding ship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I overall like the crew, think it should be a little bit cheaper, but is a fitting ability for Misfortune's Keep.
Yeah. The other weird thing about those capture gold crew is, pretty sure the first one was Aruj Barbarossa from Barbary Coast, but he's 10 points too. So it's kind of like the original was 10, and then the Pirates got a discount on it with Bonnie Peel, which makes sense because the Pirates get random discounts on abilities for no good reason. But then it was
Dragon Eyes has it for 10.
Yeah, and then exactly and then Blackbeard and Barstow.
It was like 10, 10, 8, 7, 7.
Yeah. So it fluctuated a bunch. The original was 10, and then it went down and back up. So it's kind of a weird one. So I
almost think you could retcon the old crew to 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think or even 9. I think 9 as like a middle ground would work. But yeah.
Yeah. I'll start on Blackheart. Linked it to the Harbinger, 7 points. Captain. I mean, I think I might have a browser issue, but all I can see is that it's a sack captain for 7 points. That's probably a more appropriate cost.
Yeah.
But
the second part, the last part of the ability says, if this crew is not assigned to its linked ship, it gains the black mark keyword. Which is a little odd, but
yeah, that's. I don't think. Was Black Mark ever worth 2? I thought it was 1.
Yeah, I see it as. Well, it increases the cost of the crew by 1, but before, like in terms of the bill total, it's free, because I know the crew that have it don't really have an increase in cost. Like there's a 3-point French reroller that looks like Snape that has it, but he doesn't have.
Jean-Luc de Valois, I think.
Yeah. He gets it for free, so the black mark keyword's not really worth anything, but it's weird. Then it adds a cost after the game starts. It's actually pretty weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think if this was the standard price of the normal sack captains, be an interesting alternative, maybe. But outside of that, I'm just kind of eh. And the last one looks to be basically a redo of Hammersmith. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Even the Hostile England is exactly the same.
Yeah, although it gets an extra hostile faction and gets a loyal thing.
Yeah, Hostile Cursed, yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Blackheart. I don't really know why the name is separated. I think that really needs to be corrected.
Typo thing.
Possibly, but the H is even capitalized too, so I think that should be changed back to the regular name, assuming it's the same person, because there's a ship called the Black Heart, That's 2 words. So this just makes something that's confusing, like, even more confusing. So I think that should be changed back. And I don't see why it should be more than 6 points at most. But yeah. So that's pretty much the pirate faction from Return of Davy Jones. Xerx's custom set. And we're just going to cover a couple common newbie playing mistakes. This is something I've wanted to talk about a little bit. We might make this kind of a recurring thing. We're not going to talk about it for long. One thing I've noticed, especially over the past like 6 to 12 months, people talking about like move actions. Say a ship gets like SSL or whatever, which is almost never the case. So the official ruling, I mean, you can totally house rule this. I have no problem with that. But technically, you are supposed to move the base move of the ship and then apply any movement bonuses afterwards. So let's say a ship has a base move of S plus L, and then it has a helmsman aboard. So you'd have to move, you can move LSS or SLS, but you can't move SSL technically, because you have to move the base move first, and then that would apply to things like trade currents and stuff like that too. So that's just kind of a random one that I've noticed, especially over the past, like I said, the past like 6 to 12 months. But
yeah, officially that rule is there. I've never actually been picky about the order in which people apply them, because I haven't noticed any remotely significant effect on the outcome of a game based on the order in which people do that. Thinking of a rookie mistake.
Yeah. I've seen like newer players doing it, and sometimes I say something, sometimes I don't, because it's not that big a deal. It's just something I wanted to bring up, because especially like if you refer to a ship's like move speed, usually the L would almost always go first, or at least the movement bonuses would go at the end. And then the next one, like stuff like Jonah. I mean, we briefly touched on that in the Crimson.
Jonah's complicated.
Yeah, basically, he's the 0 point crew that says that crew never cost points on the ship, but they always each take up 1 cargo space. So this doesn't mean that you can violate the build total. It doesn't mean you get like 20 points of free crew on the ship. It just means that they don't count against the point maximum of that ship. So if you have a 10-point ship, you can put 20 points of crew on it, given you have enough cargo space. But that still costs you 30 points towards the build total. It doesn't only cost the 10 points of the ship. The crew still count towards the build total. So that's one that's been confusing since, those crew came out in 2005. So that's just something I like to reiterate sometimes.
Yeah, and which reminds me, because I've done it more than once, the fact is, if you do try to basically stack something like oarsmen to a ship's point limit, because oarsmen don't take up cargo space, but only the first one doesn't, and that's one rule that I've tripped over. Another one is that those 2 point, the 2 point reducers, like I think Cavendish is one. Those don't subtract from the game's build limit.
No, they work like Jonah. Yeah.
I've run afoul of that one at least once. Yeah, with one of my early fleets.
Yeah, it's basically a niche ability that lets you put more points with a crew on a ship than can otherwise fit.
Yeah, it's incredibly rare that ability gets used. I'm amazed that WizKids printed so many of those.
Yeah, it's too many. I think there might even be a faction with more than one of them. I can't remember.
I think it's the Curse. Don't quote me.
Yeah, I know Sir Edmund is one I've used in the past.
Yeah.
I've actually used him 2 times on very specific gunship builds, kind of like monster gunship builds, they might call them. And I'll just say them real quick. The Divine Dragon is a 6-masted junk, the Cursed Have. It's pretty cool, but it's 16 points. And all-powerful Davy Jones from Ocean's Edge is 12 points. But I wanted to put him on the Divine Dragon, but him with a captain and helmsman to make it a true gunship would be 17. But then, so the way it works is you have 12, and then you have +5 with the captain helmsman. So then you're over on the point limit, and the Divine Dragon has 4 cargo spaces, so there's no cargo issue here. Then you add Sir Edmund to the ship, so he comes aboard. So now it's 19 points. But his ability says each ship each crew on the ship is 1 less point. So then there's 3 other crew. So 19 minus 3 is 16. So it just barely fits to be perfectly legal. So that's one time when I've used that pretty effectively, and that's one of my favorite setups on the Divine Dragon. Actually, it's pretty fun. And then there's another one where I think I had 41 points of crew on the Delusion, which is the 35-point ship. I put like Captain Nemo on there and Davy Jones and like Ibrahim Ozat, who's like an escorter. It's crazy. And I have a fleet. It might just be called like Delusion Fleet or something on Miniature Trading. I don't know. And it's something I created way back when I first got the Delusion, like 2012. But so there's like 7 cargo spaces. So there's 41 points, and then including Sir Edmund, I'm pretty sure. But then the other 6 crew, minus 1 to each, is minus 6. Then it fits exactly at 35. So it fits just barely in the point limit. But it would still cost 76 points total for the whole combo, which is crazy. But yeah, there's a few specific setups. I've mostly only encountered it with the Cursed. I'm sure there's other good gunship setups where you could utilize that, but it's more of a like, oh, I need this crew to make this work, rather than going out. You would never go out of your way to use the 2-point reducer, because it's just a nuisance, and it still costs the 2 points. So.
And there's also the fact that it really only works on, from what I've seen, ships that have 4 cargo or more, because it only works on ships that have 4 cargo or more, because in order to be cost effective and to really have any effect, there need to be at least 3 other crew on the ship.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point too. Yeah, it's extremely niche, but once in a while it comes in handy.
Yeah, it's I don't know why WizKids made so many of them.
Because there's too many.
I think there's some factions that may not even have a use for them at all.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Like that's a case where like you might have to go out of your way to use one, but there's no point other than to say, I used a 2-point reducer today.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
You're not wrong about that.
Yeah.
Like if the French have one, you go, okay, I put the 4 Musketeers, D'Artagnan, Porthos, Aramis, and I don't remember the 4th one.
Yeah, me either.
I put them aboard Sickle, and then I use the not Sickle, whatever. Yeah, Sickle's a cursed ship. Saber. Okay. Yeah. And then and then I put the French 2-point reducer. I don't even know if the French have a 2-point reducer. Let me check my personal spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Come up with the answer for you there. Yeah.
I think there was a weird situation. Might have been with the Cristaldo Obispo. I can't remember. I think I had to change the setup completely to get like black mark on there, but I had some crazy setup where I didn't know if the Spanish had one, and then I found it's like Inquisitor Sebastian Blanco from Crimson Coast. I was like, oh yay, the Spanish have one, so I can use it. And I think I don't think I had him in my physical collection at the time, which is part of the reason I didn't know about him. But yeah, it's very obscure, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Funny enough, okay, just opened up my my unique abilities by faction spreadsheet. Every one of the 6 main factions, excluding the one-offs, the Corsairs, the Jade Rebellion, Mercenaries, and the Vikings, every single one of them has a native 2-point reducer.
Nice.
Why?
Yeah, it's pretty
funny.
Every
last one. Why? Yeah. It's such a niche. I'm not even sure that France or maybe England does. I'm not even sure France really has a good use for that, because
I don't know.
The impression I've gotten is that France doesn't have a lot of really great unique crew.
Yeah, they're a little bit lacking compared to like the big 3.
They've got a lot of freaking escorters.
Yeah, they have too many like duplicate crew, and they have 2 Chancellor Lenoirs, but they're the same, so they're duplicates, so you can't use them in the same game. It'd be interesting. That'd be kind of an interesting fleet exercise to try to use a 2-point reducer to get like an extra interesting gunship setup. Yeah, the Saber would be a good one. Maybe the Dreadnought or something with like a ton of English crew that are really good. I don't know.
There's also I think it's Le Hercule or something. It's like the 4-mast Oh, I'm not really sure. There's like the one that's sort of El Corazado with one less mast, and there's also
Oh,
the
the
one
Corsair.
sort of HMS Dreadnought with one less mast.
Yeah, the Hercule is similar to the Dreadnought. The La Corse is similar to the Corazado in ability.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's funny because they've even got vaguely similar names thematically or pronunciation. La Corsa is El Corazada. No.
Tiny bit.
Okay, I'll stop.
The last thing I'll cover in terms of newbie, this is not a mistake at all. It's something I just want to bring up because I didn't even know about it until, I don't know. I mean, this is from the reference diagrams. This is something Wolf created a while back. Like I said, he's the rules arbitrator. Probably everybody listening knows him. But basically, on page 10 of this document that you can find at Board Game Geek, it's also linked in the first post of the rules thread. On page 10, it says, towing option 1, the ship is touching the bow of a derelict when given a move action. And then you can immediately, if the derelict was opposing to you, it and any cargo on board immediately can become part of your fleet and may be given actions normally if able. So basically, if a ship rams you and then you dismast that ship and make it a derelict, you don't have to initiate contact at the bow anywhere because the bow is already touching your ship. So you can just give a move action and start towing it right away, which is something I didn't really know about, and I still haven't really seen it used in a game. But I'm going to try my best to remember to watch out for it in Command the Oceans, because there's definitely a lot of opportunities for that sort of thing because there's so many ships involved. But just an
I have a feeling that may have almost been of some use to know in the last game I played, where it ended up being everybody fighting over a single island at the very end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were, in total, probably, I'm not even sure, 8 ships there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a 3-player game, 40-point build total.
Uh-huh.
I think all but like 2 ships showed up to the fight.
Nice.
Maybe. All but one, maybe. The one that I lost.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I always thought you had to like reinitiate contact, but if the bow is already touching, even after the ship becomes derelict, you can start towing once you give the ship a move action. So it's pretty cool because I usually tow by giving a move action to tow it in the first place, which sometimes is better if you need to get it into position. Or something I've noticed with towing is with an enemy approaching, you can flip a derelict totally around by like changing the towing position, so you can like flip the derelict like and move it quite a ways. And this became like a weird thing. I remember it was the final game. Well, it wasn't part of the tournament, but in Vassal Tournament number 1 that Xerix and I played together, we had after the tournament was basically over, we played an 8-fleet multiplayer game with all the fleets from the tournament, which was really fun. It took a while, but it was a great, memorable game. And eventually, the Zeus was totally dismasted and didn't have any crew, I don't think. And then there was a ship, I want to say it was even the Jolly Mon, towing the Zeus at S speed, but it was weirdly strategic, because if the Jolly Mon if she was headed east, like her bow was pointing east, the Zeus would be like this giant block, like maybe like LS long, about like in that one position. But then if the Jolly Mon reversed direction and went west, it would flip the Zeus all the way over and create like a new block. So you could like block off like a trade route, or like, I want to say I used that. I can't remember exactly.
I'm getting some voice cut out.
Yeah,
can you hear me still?
Wait, what was that? But basically,
I'm some voice cutouts here. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I still hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It's been a little bit inconsistent the last 30, 45 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, we're almost over.
It's quite standard.
But yeah, it was
but yeah,
a weird thing.
So it sounds to me like
crazy.
You used Jollymon to flip Zeus around.
Yeah, basically, yeah, because like the Jollymon was just staying in place almost, but then each move action was only S, so it would like flip the Zeus on the complete opposite side of the ship, because the towing ship always goes to the stern no matter what. So then you can just like block a ship, or like if a ship is approaching like your home island, you can flip it and then like create like a blockade like right there, and then they have to sink the Zeus or like re-tow it and or sink the Jolly Mon to like get it out of the way and stuff. So it was pretty funny.
Jolly
That
Mon
was an
can
amazing
almost
game.
fit underneath the Zeus.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any 10-mast ships, like, you'd be seriously amazed. This is to anybody listening, because I know you've got some.
Yeah.
10-mast ships, when you get them, you're kind of amazed how big and even kind of how heavy they are.
Yeah.
Because all the other ships feel like a couple grams in your palm.
Mm-hmm.
When you pick up a fully assembled 10-mast ship, it's like significantly heavier than any other ship. Probably twice as heavy as even 6-mast ships.
Yeah.
If not
much
more.
Yeah.
You know, I could literally check this out in like just a couple minutes. I've got a scale. Do you want me to go and weigh ships real quick?
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, you could check it out.
All right, I'll let you cover this stuff real quick. If you can think of something else that new players make the mistake of while I go weigh a 10-mast ship.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I'm strange.
Yeah.
Right.
Just come back in whenever you can.
All right. Be right back.
Yep. So basically, like I said, the reference diagrams, Wolf made it. It's actually, I would say, maybe the least known about and least used of the main documents he's created. The Pirate Code is pretty infamous, or not infamous, but it's pretty famous as like the great FAQ where you can, almost all your rules questions can be answered there. So if you haven't downloaded it, it's on Board Game Geek. And then there's also a master keyword list with all the keywords. So, which is a really great thing to print out because you probably noticed that only the keywords from each set were in the complete game rules for that set that came from the pack wrapper. So the master keyword list is a great thing to have printed out so you have all the keywords in one place so you don't have to go looking for, South China Seas to get the junk keyword up or whatever, stuff like that. And then I found it kind of interesting. The reference diagrams has a lot of kind of interesting stuff in it. Most of it's super basic. On page 3, there's also a range distance comparison where you can check out.
I'm back.
Yeah. Go ahead if you want then.
All right. I just weighed both a standard pre-Rise of the Fiends, or I guess really pre-Pirates of the Caribbean 4-mast ship, and in the Guichuan alongside each other.
Nice.
Standard 4-mast ship is 6 grams. The Guichuan is 18 grams.
Wow,
weighs
nice.
3 times as much as a 4-mast ship.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So 3 times as much with only 2.5 times as many masts. Wow. I want to say part of it's from...
That's very efficient.
Yeah. I want to say partly because the hull's longer, and then it has... The 10-master has, like, extra decks. There's, like...
Yeah, it's got a lot of decks.
Yeah, you can't even differentiate, like, the quarter deck from, like, the other decks and stuff, because there's too many.
Yeah, and the majority of the masts are actually quite big, save for those 2 little ones on the back. Mm-hmm. And actually, that reminds me of something I wanted to bring up, but I'm not sure I ever could find a time. I'm pretty convinced that 10-master ships were originally patterned to be 8-masted ships.
Huh. I've read that they were 9 for Zheng He's like real life armada, but that's what I saw.
I mean, you've got one, so pull it out of your collection and look toward the stern. Mm-hmm. The way the stern sort of rises off the table, it's sort of a line towards the top deck there, mm-hmm. interrupted by a little part where it looks almost like they thought to themselves, we can put 2 more tiny ones in the back here. Yeah,
absolutely. That's an interesting concept. Yeah, you were talking about like WizKids, what they were thinking in terms of how many masts. It's like I've read a little bit about the Baochuans, like in terms of history with Zheng He's like armada and stuff like that. And I've always seen 9 as the number of masts that they may have had. I mean, there's all these doubts and historical inaccuracies around, what happened and what they looked like and things like that. But that's interesting to think about as like an 8-master when maybe it should have been 9. But I kind of like how they're 10 though, because it's like at that point, like a 9-master, it just sounds kind of weird. Versus like 10, you get like double digits and it's like totally different mm-hmm. ball game. So it's pretty awesome, to be honest. I'm glad they made them, even if they're kind of wacky and out of place and weird. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really fit in with the rest of the game, but I
Yeah.
like them enough to collect them all, which
Yeah.
was not cheap. I don't recommend it if you don't plan on playing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, my poor wallet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I've always liked them, but yeah, and yeah, there was a 10 master thread on miniature trading recently too. So if anybody listening wants to check that out, it's about like how you acquired your 10 master collection and stuff like that, which is fun to talk about.
Yeah. And if there's anybody out there who is interested in maybe getting just one or something, one of the 10 masters, or is willing or is looking to start collecting, the easiest ones to get are either the Delusion or Bauchuan. Because the Delusion you can still buy in the in a sealed plunder pack from Hills Wholesale.
Yep.
That's $50, and you get a couple other good things in that pack.
Mm-hmm.
The other is Bauchuan. I don't know how many they printed, but it must be a ton.
Yeah.
Because you can, on a really good day, you can find one for $30 on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you wait long enough, you can get one for 2025. If you get a good auction and get a pretty good deal on it. Yep. Absolutely.
You can find them for $50 all day, but don't spend that money. Get them for less money than that. You can.
Yeah, the Guichuan and Zeus are the only ones worth 50 plus because they consistently average at least that much, if not more. So, I mean, the Guichuan
and Zeus are Guichuan and Zeus are easily the rarest.
Yeah, Guichuan was like, I remember, I don't know if it was this year or last year, there were like 4 consecutive auctions at 70 plus bucks. So, yeah.
I think at one point I got really lucky and like went straight on eBay, and like 2 minutes ago had been a Guichuan listed for 50 at Buy It Now maybe.
Yeah, nice.
So I got super lucky and bought that. But
cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention or no?
Not much else aside from the fact that if there's anybody out there who's got some graphic design skills and wants to print up some mock-ups of Return to Savage Shore stuff for us to print, please do. I'd love to have some pretty little card inserts.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I know there was, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. There was like a card creator like program thing I think somebody made.
Oh yeah.
I think it was on
somebody made that.
Geek. Yeah, I want to say I have it somewhere. I don't know if I was able to even open it. It may have been from like last decade, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it may have been like written for Windows XP or something. It's just not forward compatible.
Yeah, I don't know if I was even able to open it. And then I know Riz had some stuff on his site with like a lot of cards, and I think he had something you could download, but his site's like defunct now, so I'm not sure if that's out there somewhere. But yeah, that's a good idea. So other than that, thank you for listening. This was podcast episode number 7, and we'd love to have guests or co-hosts if you want. Feel free to leave comments in the thread here, and we'll see you next time, where we're probably going to do the Revolution set review, which will be episode 8. Yep.
I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. All right. So have a good one.